Good morning. Happy Tuesday to you. This morning, we're going to take a look at a difficult passage, not because it's hard to figure out what's going on, it's because it is so different from our experience, and that is when Jesus casts out the legion of demons from the man of the Gadarenes or the Gerasenes. So this is Mark chapter 5, starting in verse 1. They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes, and when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. So this is a very vivid picture of a man who is in a very bad way, possessed with demons. He is spiritually completely bound up. He is a mess. And yet he's physically unable to be bound. No one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. He's in an unclean place, dwelling among the dead, living among the tombs. He's cutting himself. So we see this picture of somebody who, even though they're physically, I guess, super strong, this seems to be demonic strength, yet he is being destroyed. He's cutting himself. He's completely separated from society. And it says in verse 6, and when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me. So it seems, as I was reading different commentators, it's possible that the man was able to get enough control to get himself to Jesus so that he falls down before Jesus, and then the demons cry out, What have you to do with me? It's unclear. Like I said, that there's some aspects of this that are unclear exactly who's doing what action. But it's clearly, the demons cry out, What have you to do with me? For he, that is Jesus, in verse 8, was saying to him, Come out of the man, you unclean spirit. And Jesus asked him, What is your name? He replied, My name is Legion, for we are many. So evidently there's many demons that are in this man. And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. So it's interesting. There seems to be like this spokesman of the demons. He begged him. And notice that word begged. That's going to be a key word in this passage. It's going to be used multiple times by different people. And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. So these demons don't want to go out of this area. Apparently this has been a good area for them, and they want to stay in that area. But I passed over this. In verse 7, the demons recognize who Jesus is, and they recognize that there's a time of torment coming. We see that over in Matthew chapter 25, where when Jesus comes in his glory, he says that there's a place of torment prepared for the devil and his angels, or devil and his demons. And that's what this demon doesn't want to have happen before the time. He knows that their time is coming, and he doesn't want to suffer that torment before the time. He says, Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, Send us to the pigs, let us enter them. Now, why the pigs? I don't know. Now, clearly pigs are an unclean animal, according to Jewish ceremonial law. Maybe that has something to do with it. It's kind of unclear. But he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. Did Jesus know that the pigs were about to do that? and that was his way of sending them to a place where they were going to be destroyed. Did the demons cause the pigs to be destroyed? There are some things that are just not quite clear. The herdsmen fled and told it in the city and in the country, and people came to see what it was that had happened. And they came to Jesus and saw the demon-possessed man, the one who had had the legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. So the one thing that is clear is, whereas in verse 4, no one had strength to subdue that man, Jesus did. Jesus has set him free. He was crying out, cutting himself, living among the tombs. He was an absolute mess. But now he is in his right mind. And many of us who have gone through deep and dark episodes of sin can rejoice when we see this, and we can remember some of what we've gone through, particularly those of us who have struggled with addiction in the past, and we know what it is to be bound up. But all sin binds us. It says in Romans chapter 6, we were slaves to sin. Jesus says everyone who sins is a slave to sin. But Jesus is the one who sets free. And so we see this beautiful picture of this man who's now clothed. He's not cutting himself, not crying out, not living among the tombs. He's clothed and in his right mind. But notice what it says about the people. It says they were afraid. They were, it seems, put out by this disruption, even in a very messed up state of affairs. It seems that they had become comfortable with a really weird and messed up situation and didn't like the disruptiveness. It says, and those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs, and they began to beg. Notice that second use of so first it was the demons begging Jesus. Now it's the people begging Jesus. They began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged, third time, begged him. Now it's the fourth time of the word, but it's the third person who's begging. Begged him that he might be with him. And now here's the really interesting thing. Jesus fulfilled the request of the demons who begged. He fulfilled the request of the people who begged. He's not going to fulfill the request of this one man who's in the right heart. So this is interesting. It says he did not permit him. He permitted the demons to go into the pigs, but he did not permit the man, but said to him, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. So God had a plan for him, and that plan was, now that he was set free, he was supposed to go, because this was an area where Jesus didn't spend very much time ministering. And so he sends this man out, this man who's been set free, to now go and tell what God has done for him. And that is also a pretty good pattern for us. If we've been set free by the glorious power of God from our sin, if we've experienced Jesus, we are to go and tell others about how God has had mercy on us in Jesus. It's simultaneously sad to see these people who begged Jesus to depart from their region. And I think that this is extra mercy of what Jesus is doing here. Now, the people have begged Jesus to depart from their region, but they haven't begged this man to depart from their region. And so Jesus is going to use this man. He's not going to be there anymore. He is fulfilling the request of these people, even though it's a bad request. But he's going to keep this man there, and he's going to give mercy to people who aren't part of this crowd, perhaps, and maybe some of these people who are part of the crowd are going to come around by having this story told and told again by this man, and hopefully by those who hear him and turn to Jesus. This is just a great encouragement today of the mercy of Jesus, how he sets free from sin, ultimately through his own death to pay for our sin, and through his resurrection, defeating the grave. So may that be an encouragement to us today. Love you guys.